She forced her way into my house right in the middle of a federal court session. Not symbolism, not exaggeration. A woman I had never even been properly introduced to stepped through my front door holding a clipboard, carrying herself like she owned every inch of the place. And she had no clue that the man seated at the desk in the back room, dressed in full judicial robes, was in the middle of presiding over an active federal case. What followed didn't just cause a scene, it shifted something in that neighborhood permanently. I genuinely didn't expect it. This is your last chance this week. Subscribe now, because these stories only become more intense. Before we go any further, I want to know something. Where are you watching from? Drop your country down in the comments. I've spent more than 20 years serving on the federal bench. I've witnessed fraud, corruption, open contempt, and every kind of bold human behavior you can think of. At this point, very little catches me off guard. Or at least, that's what I believed until I relocated to Maplewood Estates. On the surface, it checked every box. Peaceful cul-de-sac, tall mature trees, a highly rated school district. My wife and I had just stepped away from city life, hoping for something quieter. What we didn't realize was that Maplewood Estates came with a homeowners association. And that association came with Brenda. Brenda held the titles of HOA President, Treasurer, and, according to her, the Community Standards Officer. She even carried a laminated badge. A real laminated badge. She wore it casually, even just to collect her mail. The first notice showed up 2 weeks after we settled in. Our mailbox post, apparently, sat 4 inches too far from the curb. 4 inches. I checked it myself. Then I checked the HOA guidelines. Then I adjusted the post without saying a word, because I consider myself reasonable. But Brenda wasn't reasonable. The next notice was about our garden hose. It could be seen from the street. That alone made it a violation. The third notice pointed out our welcome mat. Apparently, burgundy wasn't on the HOA's approved color list. I called the number on the letterhead. Brenda answered immediately, like she had been expecting me. I calmly asked how a welcome mat could possibly threaten the community. She told me standards existed for a reason, and if I had a problem with them, I should have purchased a home elsewhere. That was when I fully understood who I was dealing with. Over the next 2 months, 11 notices arrived. 11. The spacing between our fence boards was allegedly a 1/4 inch too wide. My wife's flower pots were described, and I quote, as an eyesore that didn't match community aesthetic values. Brenda even started making slow drive-bys in her white Cadillac, stopping in front of our house just long enough to jot things down. My wife wanted to push back. I told her to document everything, keep every letter, and take photos with timestamps every single time. I had spent years watching people underestimate just how powerful a documented trail can become. We were carefully putting one together, but Brenda was moving faster. She went into the neighborhood Facebook group and claimed our property was lowering home values. She publicly insisted we had ignored several official notices. She even called a welcome mat official. Then she escalated things by filing a formal HOA complaint demanding an interior inspection of our home. Now, I need you to understand how serious this part is. The HOA had absolutely no legal authority to inspect the inside of any home. None at all. That is simply not how homeowners associations operate. I knew it, and any attorney would have known it too, but Brenda clearly did not care. I received the notice on a Tuesday. The inspection had been set for Thursday at 2 p.m. I sent back a formal reply through certified mail, clearly stating that no HOA representative had any legal authority to enter my home without permission, and that permission was explicitly denied. I referenced 3 applicable statutes and signed it with my full legal name, a name that, if she had taken even half a minute to look up, would have made the situation unmistakably clear. She didn't bother. When Thursday arrived, I was working from home, something I often do since federal court proceedings are now routinely conducted through secure remote sessions. At exactly 2 p.m., I was in my back office, dressed in judicial robes, on camera during an active sentencing hearing. At 2:04 p.m., I heard my front door open. I had not provided a key to anyone. The door had been left unlocked. My wife had stepped out briefly and, in a small but critical oversight, hadn't locked it behind her. Brenda took that as permission. I could hear her heels clicking across the hardwood floor. I heard closet doors opening. Then I heard her say into the phone, "I'm inside now. The place is actually quite nice," which makes the violations even more unacceptable. I asked the court reporter to mark a short recess. I stood, then walked down the hallway still in full judicial attire. When Brenda turned and saw me, 6 feet tall, federal judge, robe on, reading glasses resting on my forehead, she stopped cold, completely motionless. Her clipboard slipped a few inches before she caught it. I spoke calmly. "You are currently inside my home without my consent. I suggest you stop where you are." She stumbled over her words, claiming she had issued a notice. I told her I had issued a response. She insisted the HOA had authority. I advised her to contact her attorney before speaking another word. She actually laughed, like the whole situation was a joke, and said, "My attorney? Do you even know who I am?" I answered calmly, "Do you know who I am?" She didn't, not at all, and that's where everything took a strange turn. Brenda, angry and humiliated, pushing harder the way people do when they realize they've crossed a line, went ahead and filed a complaint with the city anyway. She accused me of threatening her, then hired a lawyer and had a formal letter sent to me, promising civil action over what she called interference with HOA responsibilities. The attorney's name was Mitchell Carr, and I recognized it instantly because he had stood in front of me in court 3 separate times before. The hearing, assigned through the court system's routine and supposedly random process, ended up in my courtroom. It wasn't a federal matter but a county civil case, and I also held a courtesy appointment there. When Mitchell Carr walked in, looked up, and saw me on the bench, his face drained of color. He immediately requested a recess, and out in the hallway he called Brenda, explaining in very direct terms, ones I later heard described as blunt and unmistakable, that she had just filed a lawsuit against a sitting federal judge for simply being in his own home. He reportedly repeated the phrase, "catastrophic mistake," more than once. Brenda tried to pull the case back, but by that point I had already filed claims for unlawful entry, harassment, and defamation based on her posts online. My attorney, who had once clerked for me, handled everything with precision. The HOA's insurance carrier reached a settlement within 6 weeks. Brenda was voted out of her position by the neighborhood, 31-2, with the only support coming from her sister and, oddly enough, a man named Gerald that no one could quite account for. The laminated badge was handed over quietly in a brief, almost awkward moment in the community center parking lot, and my wife planted. Deep crimson blooms lined the full frontage of the house by the next spring, each one clearly visible from the road. We never received a single notice. Here is the point you should take from this. Brenda was not some rare kind of villain. She was typical. Typical entitlement, typical arrogance, typical belief that rules were meant for everyone else, but not her. The only thing that made her situation stand out was the person she chose to go after. Most of the people she had pressured before never resisted. They adjusted their mailbox posts. They tucked away their garden hoses. They picked comfort over standing their ground. And I completely get that. I had the means to push back. Not everyone does. So if you are out there watching this and thinking about a Brenda in your own life, keep records of everything. Answer in writing. Understand your rights. And never assume the person facing you has taken the time to truly know who you are. Brenda definitely didn't. If this story resonated with you, you already know what to do. Subscribe and stay close, because the next story is already on its way.